together some sort of non-conference schedule that's going to work for you guys?
Yeah, last extended conversation I had about scheduling was with Nick, and Nick, you probably remember, the two of us talking about it, but me talking about how this could go on for a while. Right? We could get to a week to 10 days prior to a game or an event, and all of a sudden we find ourselves in it or having to pull out of it and go to something else. So, one of the things I've talked with our guys just generally speaking about, going back 6, 7, really 8 months, is being patient and being flexible and being willing to look at the big picture and kind of roll with the punches. But being flexible is one of the things that we've talked about a lot. Specific to today, this all happened in the last from yesterday afternoon until now. So really in the last 24 hours, guys. This wasn't something that we were looking for. There was this opportunity came up 2 weeks ago. They had the Sioux Falls tournament had somebody had to pull out because of COVID, and they called us and asked us if we would take their place 2 weeks ago, and I told them no, that we had given our word to Nebraska. We had our two opponents, and they understood that, and they moved on, and we moved on, and I'm not going to go into all of the conversations or all of the details, but there was just a little bit of uncertainty as to who our second opponent might be. Came up yesterday and then happened completely randomly to get a call from Sioux Falls for the second time, and they asked if there was any way that we could take somebody's place. So again, I'm not going to go into all the conversations, but it all happened within the last 24 hours. Not something we were looking for. I don't like doing it. There's teams that are going to Nebraska still that were counting on us being there, and I do not like that part at all. But given all of the conversations that happened over the last 24 hours and where things were at, this was the right decision. I know it's the right decision. I just don't like having to do it a week before an event when other teams are counting on us somewhere else. So I don't like that part of it, but I know we made the right decision.
Just a quick follow-up on that. How much does it help when you have a veteran roster with so much uncertainty, and you look, your opening opponent changes a week before you're set to play? Guys who have been through the ringer, who have been through, intense situations in this program. I mean, how much does it help to know that, those guys aren't going to get, rattled or frazzled by, so many changes, especially so many changes here right close to the start of the season?
Yeah, and that's been a real key for us. Our 4 older guys are with everything that we've done. And as recent as our practices, what happens during the course of our practices, those are the 4 guys that we all lean on to make sure that we're getting things done right. When we have had to change something, whatever it might be with a lift or a practice time, or we can count on those 4 guys to show up and get to work and make sure that they got other guys moving and shaking the way that they're supposed to. So. This would be no different, Dargan, and it's something that we certainly have benefited from already and will continue to benefit from, because you don't know what the next change is going to be. You just don't, right? For none of us, for any of us. It's just hard to say what the next one's going to be, and so we got the right 4 guys. They have the right mentality. They don't get shook up by much. I think not only is it result of some of the experiences that they've had. I think it's bigger and much more to do with they like each other. They're willing to push each other. They get along good. They've got the same goals, so they know that we've got to be flexible. And they're willing to work on that together, and they're working to pull our team along with them. And so, we got the right 4 guys, in those spots.
Coach, looking at travel here this year, you have trips to Richmond, now Sioux Falls. Can you confirm, is Wisconsin happening as well?
Yes, that contract is signed, Nick. So we would bus over to Madison for that game against Wisconsin on December 16th is the game date. We would bus over the day before that. I believe we've got one other contract in. I,
At Marshall?
yeah, the one at Marshall is contracted. That's a return game from this past year. We've got one other one that's either real close or it's already in. Yeah, I hate to throw it out there if the contract isn't back yet, but it would be a home game for us on December 12th, if that's a Saturday. And maybe if you've already seen that one out there, then that
I think Green Bay announced that.
Okay, then that contract is signed. It is Green Bay. Yeah, and if you've already seen that, that's the one I'm talking about. So we're close now with three games in Sioux Falls, road games at Richmond, at Wisconsin, and at Marshall. Gets us to 6. A home game with Green Bay gets us to 7. And now with what we've got on our schedule, with the 3 in Sioux Falls and then the ones that I mentioned, with the 7 we have, we're going to look to get 2 home games so that we've got what would then be a total of 3 home games to go along with Green Bay. And those may very well both be non-Division I games. If we can get the testing right, that's the biggest challenge, is how do we get the testing right, potentially with the non-D1 teams. But there's a number of teams in our league and outside of our league that are playing non-D1 teams, and so but we may very well be playing 2 non-D1s. There's some challenges with getting some Division I teams here. Cost is one of those challenges. So what I'd really like to do is, if we can get it to work with the 2 non-D1s and get the 3 home games, I want to have 3 of them. So right now we're at somewhere around 25% capacity for McLeod. Right now that's the number that we're at. If that stays that way, guys, I want our fans to be able to, at least the season ticket holders that would be able to get in the building, to be able to get out of the house and sit in the McLeod Center and see the guys. So I'd really like to get 2 more at home, Nick, and it might be 2 non-D1s.
What's your approach to travel this year with everything that's going on, and how your travel plans kind of changed, and what types of challenges do you anticipate with this team when you look at the number of trips you're going on here in non-conference play?
Yeah, we'll bus to Sioux Falls. We'll bus to Madison. So the 2 trips that would be flights would be to Richmond and to Marshall. We're in conversations with it just being 2 of them, and some of the other financial things that have impacted us on the positive side. And one of those being not paying North Carolina AT&T. I think we were paying them $70,000 for a bye game. And typically in a given year we'll buy 1 or 2 games in at between $60,000 and $75,000, and so there are some things that have been impacted on the financial side that would be back to the budget. Obviously, we know and have talked a lot more about the things that have negatively impacted our budget and the challenges that we have with that. Those haven't gone away, but there are some things within ours that would allow us to, with those 2 trips, to talk about chartering to those 2. And that's something that we would normally do, one of those 2 in a given year. We would do in the non-conference, in addition to the ones that we have in conference play. So that isn't outside of what we might normally do. And then just from a COVID standpoint, if we're able to charter both those trips and then bus to Madison, bus to Sioux Falls, Nick, then we've got it pretty well taken care of, where we're just with our group, right? Where we don't go through on a commercial flight and go through the airports and do those kinds of things. So we're talking about that with both those trips.
Do you have any update on Gonar's status? Do you anticipate he'll be able to play in the opener?
At this point, he will not be able to play. They denied his request or waiver. Yeah, his waiver request. We are putting together an appeal, and I'm gathering all the information that they asked for to appeal the initial decision, so that we can get that waiver approved. So at this point, no. I don't know that we've got the appeal back to them yet, Nick. So I don't. It's not a day-to-day thing, right? We've got to get the appeal back to them first and then they'll have to take some time to look at it. So I do not anticipate Gonar being available for Wednesday's game. If somehow we got it into them and they were able to take a look at it, it'd be great if he was.
How does that change the complexion of your roster, or what you plan on doing as far as rotations here entering the start of the season?
Yeah, with Gonar, with his waiver not being approved yet, Titan Anderson is coming off of a minor knee surgery so he's out probably, if I got my days right, probably till January, and then we'll just have to see where he's at. So yeah, that does that. And Titan and Gonar are guys that defend multiple positions, guys that play small forward, power forward, and that kind of in that range in our lineup. So we're really two down there right now. We didn't know if we'd have Gonar, but we were counting on having Titan. So yeah, there'll be some lineups that might look a little different if Titan was healthy and Gonar's Gonar was in the lineup. But we'll find our way through that.
But from a basketball standpoint, I mean, how are things going? Where are you guys at? Are you feeling ready to play basketball competitively the 7 days?
Yeah, we had maybe our best practice 2 days ago, which I was happy to see. 2 or 3 or 4 days before that, we did not have a very good practice. We've had good ones, but 4 or 5 days ago, we did not have a very good one. And just one of the nice things about the group we have, and I've talked about the 4 older guys, but one of the nice things about the group we have is really as a coaching staff, we don't have to ask them twice. I don't have to spend a half hour explaining to them why it's important to jump to the ball or why it's important to block out. Like, hey, at this time of year, we're making mistakes like we do every year. No matter what team we've had, there's things that we'd like to be doing better 20 practices in, but this is the way it goes all the time. The things that we have control over, this team is doing a pretty good job of. They practice hard. Their intentions are good. I already mentioned it once in a different aspect, but they like playing with each other. The ball moves well. Our pace has been good. I'd like to see that increase even a little bit more offensively, pushing it in transition and then popping the ball around with the pace. But their intentions are really good, and they play hard. The 2 things that we have asked of them is a little more bounce in their step from an energy standpoint, and then more in terms of communication. And that's an area that some guys are getting used to because Isaiah Brown, Spencer, Luke McDonald, those 3 in particular, they were great communicators. Luke and Isaiah even more so than Spence. His was more, maybe a little more by example, right? He just had that chip on his shoulder and he was tougher than nails and he provided that for our group. But Isaiah and Luke were tremendous communicators. And so we got guys right now that are working into that role. And when you play with guys like that, you understand how important it is, but it's, the 4 guys that are older for us right now, they didn't have to do that as much last year because Luke and Isaiah did so much of it, right? So that's an area that we're talking about a lot. And they're working at it, and it's we're seeing progress every week to 10 days with it. But for the most part, we like what we're seeing at practice. We got a lot of work to do. We've talked about the 4 older guys. Once you get past those 4, you're talking about sophomores, redshirt freshmen, and freshmen, right? You got a bunch of guys that have played very few minutes that are going to be in the starting lineup or playing a bunch of minutes come next Wednesday. So we got the right 4 older guys, but then it jumps to some guys that don't have a lot of experience.
That's kind of where I wanted to go next question too. Is who out of that big group of underclassmen that you're going to need to contribute as top for you so far? Who do you have high expectations for?
Yeah, so Noah, James, Antoine, all 3 of them doing well. Bowen and Nate. So those 5, as I mentioned, Titan's out. Gonar's waiver didn't go through. Cole Henry right now is doing a good job at practice, but James would be the first guy off the bench at that center spot. Cole would be behind him. Evan Gogger's been hurt. He's been battling some knee issues, really in both knees, and so hasn't been able to practice much. So it's those 5 guys I mentioned, the 3 guys that played as freshmen last year, and then Bowen and Nate, and all 5 of those guys they're good players. Right? They got a ton to learn, but they are good players and very capable of making plays. Yeah, we're excited about all 5 of those guys, and we'll see all 5 of those guys come next Wednesday.
Hey, Ben, Grant just stole my question about your newcomers, so let me go this way. Usually you can have a secret scrimmage or maybe open up with a Division II or Division III team. What have you done this year to prepare so that you're ready to play come next Wednesday?
Yeah, that's been a challenge, KL. And it was about when we had the bad practice I mentioned 4 or 5 days ago. We got done, and I talked to the staff a little bit and said, guys, what we're missing is a scrimmage. You know, it was about that time after that many practices that we scrimmaged North Dakota State up in Minneapolis, and that was a great experience for us. We played pretty good at times, but there were times we did not play very good. So to be able to watch that film and get back to practice, right, after playing against somebody else and having officials and just doing something different than being on the practice floor every day. So you nailed it, KL. I mean, that is a challenge. And we've had 2 different days so far where we've had 3 10-minute scrimmages on each of those days. So tried to simulate it as best we can in our practices. But that has an impact on getting ready when you're not able to play against somebody else with 1 or 2 scrimmages or an exhibition game. There's no question.
With COVID, man, are you able to bring officials in?
We have not. I don't know if other teams have, KL, but we have not. You know, we made the decision not to bring anybody else into the gym. So we just refereed it ourselves, but did the 2 days. Again, each day we had 3 10-minute segments of scrimmage. We just refereed it ourselves.
And one last thing. One more call.
Yeah, go ahead, KL.
Who's going to take on that? I'm going to give you a 2-part question. Take on that role of defensive stopper, which Isaiah Brown was, and then Spencer could play the 1 and the 2. You move him around. Who's going to fit those 2 roles for you? Because those are everything else is back except those 2 pieces.
Yeah, and those 2, you're right on. The other one is Big Country coming off that bench and how good he was. More non-conference, but those were important games. You know, West Virginia, South Carolina, at Colorado, and then a handful of games in conference play. You know, not as many because we don't see as many guys that size as we do in non-conference play. But so Pickford, in terms of Isaiah's role that you mentioned, Antoine as well. You know, both of those guys, their defensive presence, will have to take the place and make up for what we lost in terms of having Isaiah on the floor, and feel really good about both those guys. Feel really good about Ty taking on that challenge, and then with Spence, you know, really Bowen and Nate both. And I know they're true freshmen, but they sure don't act like it. I mean, both guys have got a ton of confidence. Both guys are highly competitive. And they both, as you mentioned with Spencer, you know, his ability to play on the ball, play off the ball. We've got the same thing with Nate and with Bowen. Both those guys can play the point, although Bowen has played it much more in practice. Nate hasn't played much at the point in terms of position, but he does handle the ball. You know, he can use a ball screen. He passes the ball well, and gives us another ball handler on the floor, even though he has not played the point really much at all in practice. So, and then with Big Country, we don't have anyone that size, right? So it's James and it's Cole, and just different kind of players. James has really practiced well. He's shooting the ball great from the three-point line, gotten stronger. The game has slowed down a little bit for him. So it's just a different kind of player at that spot.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
How differently have you engineered practice and preparation, knowing that, you know, whether it's AJ or whether it's, you know, Ty and maybe whoever his 1 or 2 roommates are, could be down for a couple weeks or longer due to a COVID result on a test. You know, just knowing that everybody on your roster's got to be ready. How differently have you engineered things?
Yeah, I would say the differences would be in terms of the COVID protocols, Cole, really, in terms of the practice structure itself, doing a lot of the same things. The differences are the guys are wearing masks during practice, and that obviously takes some getting used to. We wear the mask during practice so that if one guy does get it, it doesn't knock everybody out. You know, their chairs are 6 feet apart. Anytime we go to get water, they've got the social distance between their chairs, so when they're sitting down, they get a chance to take their mask down and get a drink. And we've gotten, you know, with them wearing masks, Cole, we've gone to 4, 5, 6 water breaks in a 2-hour practice instead of 2 or 3, was more typical. So we're doubled up on that part of it. But the rest of it, the structure and what we're doing and how we're putting it together is really pretty similar. Because with wearing the mask, it doesn't knock everybody out. And then, talking to the guys and, just about every single day reminding them, that really we got to be at the gym, you got to go to class, and you need to go to your apartment or your dorm room, right? You can't go out to eat, just that list of things right now in order to do the best job we can. And the guys have done a great job. I mean, we had 2 cases around the 4th of July. We had I think 3 early September where we had a couple, and then haven't had one since. So the guys have done a good job in terms of the protocol and taking care of things when they're not here.
I may have seen this correctly, but I want to say that I had read something that Missouri Valley, among a few other conferences, were going to be making use of those connection bracelets that the NBA had used, or some form of those, where it tracks movements. Is that a fact? Are you guys wearing those, or will you soon have those?
Yeah, they just got here within the last few days, Cole. AJ, they're sitting back here. That's why I'm looking away from the camera. AJ, Ty, Fife, all 3 of you guys wearing them? Yeah, and then probably Trey. So we've got a few of the guys that are wearing them right now, and that will extend to. I think one of our assistants had one on a kind of a wristwatch type deal as we get started using them. But yes, Cole, to answer your question, we will be using those in the Valley.
And basically what those are able to do is take contact tracing from maybe anecdotal evidence to it's right there on the bracelet.
Correct. Yep. It tells you exactly how long you've been within 6 feet of anybody else. Yep. So you're able to exactly how you described it. Yep, that's correct.
Somebody's got to ask starting lineup.
Trying to see. Maybe Ryman's not on the call, is he? First time in my 15 years that Ryman hasn't been on the call. If you are watching, Ryman, we miss you. And your buddy Cole's got you covered on the yearly starting lineup. The 4 guys that we've talked about a lot will start on Wednesday. The 4 older guys, and then really Antoine, Bowen, Nate, Noah, who we really haven't talked about Noah, and he's practicing great. Any of the 4 of those guys, James would not be in the mix. Fife's going to start at the center spot. James would not be in the mix for a starting spot. He's going to be the first guy off the bench at that spot. So, any of those 4 guys could start. Gang, they really could. Just what's going to be the best way to start the game and who's going to be the best group to be coming off the bench. Because right now, as I said, we've got 9 that are going to be in the rotation. Cole is the 3rd guy at that center spot right now, is 10, and then until we get going our back, until Ev gets healthy, some of those other guys that, Drew and Krogs, those guys are doing a great job at practice, but they're not in the rotation right now. So the 9 guys that we've touched on, all 9 of those guys are going to be heavily in the rotation. Who that 5th starter is going to be, we'll have to see. We're off of practice today. We go back to practice tomorrow, and I'd like to get them in there and talk about our group that's going to start and who's going to come off the bench. But again, all 4 of those guys. I can make a case for Noah. I can make a case for Nate. I can make one for Bowen, and I can make one for Antoine. And the most important thing for me and for our team is that those guys plus James give us 9 that they're going to play. Right? They're going to be in the rotation. We feel good about all 5 of those guys.
Coach, regarding that personnel, you used Noah last year as kind of a 5, think of pops. Would you see him this year? You going to play in 3-4, or where's he going to fit in? Because he's so versatile that front line.
Yeah, he's and that was a good lineup for us last year. We were, as you said, we'd sneak him in there at the 5. We got some mileage out of that last year, and James is playing well enough right now, KL, and is a guy that can really make threes. So he provides us a little bit of a change up with some things that we were able to do with Noah last year. So right now, Noah has played he's played the 4 and spent all of his time at that spot. And we feel and he's really improved. He's better at both ends. He's in much better shape. He looks good. He's moving good. Really playing well offensively, making a lot of shots in practice. And he's gotten better at the other end. Starting to really understand footwork and rotations. Starting to block out a little bit. Kale starting to do the little things that have to happen if you're going to be on the floor for a long time, and so that's been good to see from him.
Coach, how do you feel? Sorry. I guess how do you feel Bowen and Nate's games will translate to the college level, and how much of a learning curve will there be for them right away?
Yeah, it's going to be a learning curve. There's no two ways around it. But I think, and I think we all think, my staff, their teammates, I think we all think they're both going to be terrific. As I said, both those guys, they've got very good ball skills. They handle it and pass it. They make threes, but they're able to get downhill. They're able to put pressure on the defense and make some plays at the basket. They've got good timing. They understand. They understand when help situations occur, being able to pick it up and get rid of it and move it to a guy. So those things are important, and they're certainly going to help them when they're as they're getting used to the college game. But the reason I think they're going to do well early, Nick, is because they're so competitive, both of them. Every single day, those two guys are bringing it. They want to win, and they want to win bad. So, they're going to make mistakes because they're young and they're just getting started with their college careers. But I would not be surprised to see them both play well next week against good teams and against the competition we're going to face next week. It could be, one, because they're good players. Two, they're every single day they're competing. Just competitive guys. So, yeah, we couldn't be more excited about those two guys.
I think in a normal year we'd be talking about how last year ended as a motivation and just, with a lot of those key pieces back. But that Drake loss seems like it was about 50 years ago.
All right.
Just in terms of the way last season ended and the key guys coming back, how much has that been infiltrated into this offseason and going into this year that, as much success as there was last year, it didn't end the way that you guys wanted to, and those expectations are right there high again.
Yeah, I guess a couple things, Darg, and you're right. That game was not the way that we wanted our last game last year to be. Now, what that did to the rest of our season, right, we're never going to know. If we were still going to get into the NCAA tournament with an at-large, or if that knocked us out, or so we don't know the answer to that part. But regardless of what was going to happen next, that's not the game we wanted to play with the team that we had last year. And I think with everything that's going on, I guess feels to me like the guys probably, because they've been on their own a lot, had a ton of responsibility for working out on their own because they were home for an extended period of time. And my guess is that that motivated them to get to the gym, an extra time or stay a little longer. That certainly was part of their motivation and part of their preparation this summer. But that I think more on an individual basis, Dargan. We haven't talked about it as a team. I would guess the next time it comes up, Dargan, is when we get to Christmas and non-conference is done and we're getting ready for conference play and it comes more front of the mind. Would maybe be the next time it comes up, but it's not something we're using every day as motivation. Drake played a great game. They beat us, not the way we wanted the year to end, but we've been focused on a lot of other things.
Coach, with AJ getting feedback from the NBA this summer, what have you seen from him as far as in practice? Just anything that really stands out that maybe you could tell he must have picked up something, or he's definitely heard what some of these guys said and he's applying it already so far in practice, and probably can't wait to see if it happens in a game.
Yeah, the feedback was very consistent from the NBA teams that AJ talked to, and one of the areas they talked about was his footwork and his strength. Those are both better, and he just, even going back a couple months when we got together at the end of July and we were around the team a little bit more and being around AJ a little bit more, you could just see it. He is a year older, but he also looks. He just looks a year older from a strength standpoint. Being in practice, his footwork has improved. He's improved as a defender because of the strength and the footwork. The other area that they talked about, obviously they're impressed with the way he scores the basketball. The range on his jump shot, his ability to get his own shot. Those are things that they've been very impressed with in his first 2 years, and they talked about that. What they added is you need to continue to move that forward, right? I mean, he's highly efficient, and I think one of the best, I know one of the best scorers in college. I don't think there's any question about that. And but they want to see him take another step forward in terms of making more shots, or even whether it's his range or some of the shots that he takes for our team, and he's shown that in practice. His range is improved. The jump shot's coming out even smoother, if you will. I think because of the strength than it did the last 2 years. So those are things I think people that watch us a lot, you'll be able to see right away the footwork and the strength, and you'll see offensively the strength has helped him in terms of his jump shot and the range on his shot, and just some things he's able to do right now that he certainly wasn't doing as a freshman. Some that he was doing last year, but he's just doing them better now because of the strength that he's added.
Well, I mean, obviously AJ had a lot of hype coming in. How has he handled just everything, getting this feedback and just how he's grown with everything and trying to lead this team?
Yeah, the thing that I've been most impressed with, and I don't like speaking for his teammates, but I think they would probably say the same thing, is how he's handled everything. He was freshman of the year as a freshman, and that didn't slow him down from putting in more and more time to get better. He also had his ups and downs as a freshman. He didn't play great every night, and he handled that the same way that he's handled any of the praise or being freshman of the year, being player of the year last year. So regardless of what side of the scale it's on, if you will, he handles it all in a great way. His demeanor's great. He just wants to get back to work. If he has a great game, he's right back in there at whatever time it is. If it's 9 a.m., whatever time, whatever his normal time is, it doesn't matter how he plays the day before or the night before in a game or how he practices the day before. He's always right back in there working. So that to me is, I think where he's gained a lot of respect from his teammates. I know he has. And I've just been so impressed with how he handles both ends of the spectrum. He just gets right back to work. And that's a tremendous, tremendous quality.
I imagine there's probably a little bit more offense or volume available in the offense for Trey this year. What kind of is the next step for him? What can we see this year that we haven't maybe seen from him yet?
Yeah, he's spent considerable time working on his ball handling. So he's able to do some more things with the ball screen, able to do some more things with the dribble, and that's always a little bit tricky when you shoot it. I've said this, I've said it quite a few times. Whenever asked about Trey, he's one of the best catch and shoot guys in the country. He proved that a year ago, and so it's always a little bit of a catch-22 when you shoot it as well as he does. But at the same time, and we talked with Trey about this, you need to work and expand your game as well, both for our team this year and for his future in basketball. For him to really make strides, it's about ball handling and passing and reading situations. And then defensively is where I've really challenged him. The offensive stuff, we've talked about and he's working on it. But I've really challenged him defensively to be an everyday guy. Every day at practice, every possession on game night. And he's been great at practice. He's a much different defender right now on a daily basis, practice to practice, than he was a year ago. So he's better in both those areas.
Kind of looking down the road a little bit here, obviously the NCAA basis of this year is not going to count as far as eligibility is concerned. You get a bonus here for these guys. Kind of two parts on that. Do you imagine there's guys in this roster that are hoping to take advantage of that, and is that something that's going to be possible? Because obviously there'll be a decision for the school to make, and there's an insane financial crunch from what's happening so far this year.
Yeah, there's a lot in that equation, right? The things you mentioned are very real. The other things I would add to that equation is, for Taiwan, for Gonar for Trey, they're on track to graduate. Trey in Taiwan, in particular, Gonar had planned a redshirt, so the way he's got things set up. But the academic piece of it is a part of it, and then their professional opportunities. At the end of this year, where Ty and Trey in particular are in terms of their professional opportunities. If this is the best opportunity to go and take advantage of, if they have their degree, which they're both going to. So we haven't sat down and had the extended conversation. I haven't sat down with Trey and Ty in particular. Gonar, I think, will be back, no matter what, and that's been the plan the entire time in terms of recruiting him again here when he transferred back from George Mason. So, but Ty and Trey and I need to sit down and have that conversation, and we'll see what they're thinking right now, and that could change as the season goes along based on the things that I mentioned. But if they want to come back, I believe we'll be in position to make that happen, even given the challenges that you mentioned.
And then with AJ, all the attention he draws defensively, during the offseason, have you looked or implemented different ways to get him the ball or get him shots, or just change your offense to use him more efficiently?
Yeah, we haven't changed our offense, KL. We're doing the same things we did the change from 2 years ago. We're doing the same things. Now we've added some things to it. We've added some things to get AJ the ball in some different spots. We've practiced with AJ off the ball more this year than we have the first 2 years. We've added some things a little bit for Trey. We've done more this year in the early practices than we did a year ago in terms of getting the basketball to Fife. Going into last year, Austin was coming off the medical red shirt and just not quite knowing where he was going to be at from a health standpoint. Obviously right now we know not only from a health standpoint, but we know in terms of the year he put together last year and just how good a player he is. So he's touching the ball a lot more in practice than he was a year ago at this time. So I think, yeah, your question's right. We're moving AJ around more than we did a year ago. He's still going to have the ball in his hands a lot. We want him to bring it on missed shots and transition. But with Antoine, with Bowen, with those two in particular, those are guys that can start the offense for us, bring it after made shots. And also felt like, important not just with AJ, but with Trey and with Austin, that we're doing some things so those guys have some more opportunities to score the basketball.
All right, thanks.
Going back to Noah, can you just kind of take me through his development coming in as a freshman up till now? And where has he really elevated his game this year, and where does he still need to get better?
Yeah, the biggest change for Noah has been his conditioning. When he and that's always a challenge. For young guys when they're coming in, the speed of the game, the strength of players, their conditioning, that's always a challenge for young guys. It's one we talk to them a lot about, and I know Noah would tell you the same thing. He didn't take on that challenge in the spring of his senior year of high school the way that he needed to. When he got here, I think he felt like he was in pretty good shape, but he wasn't even close to where he needed to be, and where really the rest of his teammates were at. So just a great learning opportunity for Noah, even at that time. Just getting here, and that's where he's made the most strides. He's right now his weight's around 225. Last year he was 232 to 235 is what he played at a year ago, and that was down from when he got here. But right now he's somewhere around 225. So he's just that allows him to move better, allows him to play longer. That's the biggest change. And I've talked. Noah and I have talked about this quite a bit. His ability to move his feet, defend, and rebound the basketball at both ends is going to allow him to be on the floor. When you combine it with the conditioning I talked about, those things are going to allow him to be on the floor so he can do what he does best. Like we all know he can score, right? He can get points in a hurry. He's a terrific scorer, and he can score it from anywhere on the floor. And for us to be able to use that as much as we would like to, he needs to be in great shape. He needs to defend. And he needs to rebound. And he's doing those three things at the highest level in terms of his basketball career, he's doing those three things right now at a much higher level. And I know he's challenged himself to be better in those areas. And I'm proud of the strides that he's made. And he's got plenty of. The exciting part is he's got plenty of room to go in terms of his conditioning and as a defender and a rebounder. So those are the three areas that where he's really made some strides.